Okay, let's 3 minutes past the hour. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Just wanted to let you all know that this meeting is recorded. We post our Community Connects meetings online on our website at sadigitalconnects.com so that community orgs who aren't able to make it at this time can view them at a later time. But happy Digital Inclusion Week. We're so excited that y'all are able to join us as we celebrate Digital Inclusion Week. And this is a time when communities and individuals and organizations really raise awareness about digital inclusion in their communities and really take action around it. So we're so excited that we timed our Community Connects to be part of the celebration this week. So we'll go ahead and get started with the agenda. So we're going to start off with just some quick high-level SA Digital Connects updates. And then we're going to have a really cool interview session with Bexar County Commissioner Justin Rodriguez, which we're really excited about. We have our partners at the FCC joining us today, and they're going to give some updates. And then we'll have some Digital Inclusion Week updates and how we can engage there. And then we'll close off with some activation and also some Q&A. Awesome. So I have the pleasure of introducing our SA Digital Connects Board Chairwoman, Luisa Gasso. Luisa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Marina. It is my pleasure to be with you. I am the Corporate Communications Manager for Toyota here at Toyota, Texas. And as chair of this organization, representing Toyota, but also the private sector who has been behind this, SA Digital Connects now for 2 years, and this organization for the past year, helping to raise private sector funds to fund the work that's being done by SA Digital Connects, but really as a resource for the many organizations that have been working on closing the digital divide and providing services to those who do not have digital access in the community. We know and recognize that this work has been going on for many years, and we want to thank you for the great work that you have been doing, and we want to support you in the work that you will continue to do. So thank you very much. SA Digital Connects is a resource to you. We are working very hard to help this community of organizations take a full advantage of the opportunities that are here for a very short period of time to get the infrastructure and the support that is available to help close the digital divide. And today you're going to hear about some great advancements towards that our Executive Director, Marina Aldrete Gavita, will go through, which is fantastic. I want to really thank all of you for being here and tuning in. And I want to thank our speakers, Rebecca Lockhart with the FCC, Angelica Cluna with DIASA, and Commissioner Justin Rodriguez for the great work he's continuing to do to champion. I want to leave you with one thought, and really why the private sector is so important, the nonprofits that are here that are important, and the government sector that is here, the public-private organization groups that are here all at the table, and why this is so important and why we believe. Toyota believes in equity, and why the private sector that also aligns those people, and take a very close look at who has given money, because we are all in alignment about equity and giving people the opportunity to have the same access, right? It's all about access. But when we talk about taking on difficult challenges, whether it was a concept that was taught to me many years ago when I was with the Coca-Cola Company by our then global chairman, Muhtar Kent, and it's called the Golden Triangle. So whether you take on these large societal challenges like getting the water to flow in the Yangtze River in China, or closing the digital divide in Bexar County, it's about bringing everybody at the table and all working in unison. that golden triangle of corporate America, government, and nonprofit organizations, and us working together, because none of us can do it alone. And that's what this represents here today. So thank you again for being here, for tuning in, for collaborating and working together. So I turn it back to Marina.
Yeah, thanks, Louisa. As Louisa mentioned, digital inclusion work has been done in our community for so many years. We just recently celebrated SA Digital Connect's 1-year anniversary, but we all know and recognize that there's so much great effort that has been done to constantly close our community's digital divide over the past couple of years. Right now, with the federal government, there's some momentum and funding that we have to capitalize on. So our moment to act is now. And that's what SA Digital Connects is working on, right? Like Louisa said, bringing in the public sector, private sector, and community collaboration so we can all activate on it together. With that, just wanted to give some brief SA Digital Connects updates. So you all know that SA Digital Connect's scope is one, that together we have built our community's digital equity plan. Now we're focused on implementing the plan. And lastly, we're going to be tracking and reporting progress along the way. So for implementing the plan, we talk about focusing on the 3 legs of the stool: access and infrastructure, affordability, and adoption and digital skills. So I'll be giving updates that way. So regarding access and infrastructure, obviously you all saw the news on Judge Wolf and the County Commissioner's Court leadership in investing in broadband expansion and digital inclusion. It is a huge win for our community that they stepped up and are investing in the community. And it just shows great leadership. We know that state funding is going to come down, but that state funding, it looks great when local government, city and counties are investing in their community first, because then we're able to get some state funding. So that is just a huge win. And now we're really focusing on tracking that funding to make sure it goes to census tracts that are currently disconnected. Obviously, the state broadband office has some funding opportunities that they are gearing up for. We have a very close partnership with the state broadband office. Our team is tracking on each of those funding buckets. A lot of the activation is going to really start at the latter part of this year, early into next year. So we will be pushing those updates to all of you all so we can figure out what buckets of money are available, how is our community going to go after it, how are we going to collectively push this together. And then obviously we are preparing for our legislative session. I often say this, that in order to get that state funding, it is going to require a full court press from us. And that is full court press, meaning all of us, our elected officials, our private sector, our community orgs, all of us working together to really secure that state funding for our community. So one, thank you for being in this fight with us, and thank you for sticking in the fight with us, because it is going to take all of us. For affordability, we a couple of months ago launched our ACP toolkit. We had a train the trainer session that has been received really well. We have gotten pinged across the nation on our ACP toolkit. And, I think you all have heard me say our team's motto is to be helpful. So we have just shared the Google Doc with all the meat and potatoes of the ACP toolkit, because for us, success is getting people enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program, because $30 a month is such a significant savings off people's internet bill. Recently, there was that national ACP dashboard that was launched and is a great tool, and it shows that San Antonio is around one of the top 10 cities with the highest ACP enrollment. That's a good thing and a bad thing. It shows the need in our community, but the good side of it is that SA Digital Connects, all the community partners here today, all of our elected officials, we are making strides in making sure our community is signed up for ACP. So that is the positive side there. And then for adoption digital skills, we just entered a partnership with San Antonio Community Resource Directory. We're so excited about that. So one of our most visited pages is sadigitalconnects.com/resources, and it lists all of the orgs that are doing work in the digital inclusion space, whether it's offering free Wi-Fi, offering refurbished devices, offering classes for older adults. And so currently we have a list, and soon we will have a visual representation on this map feature. And so we're very excited. So coming soon, you'll see www.sacred.org/SADigitalConnects. We're timing it to launch around mid to late October. But one of the most exciting components of this is that this will show us where digital inclusion work is happening in our city and county, but it's also going to show us where it's not happening. So we might, for instance, see that in 78201, for instance, that there's not a whole lot of digital literacy courses available to that zip code. So then we can start connecting community partners to make things right there. But it's going to be really good to, again, get that visual map of what was going on in the digital inclusion space and see where we need to fill in the gaps. So I think I said a lot, and I'm so excited for the next segment of our meeting today, where we're going to have a Q&A with Bexar County Commissioner Justin Rodriguez. So hi, Justin, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Marina. How are you doing?
Good, good. We're excited. Our Community Connects days are always really big days for us. So thanks for being with us this morning. Just had a couple of questions, and then there might be some questions later on, and just wanted to talk about, the county's investment. So I'm going to start with my first question. The county recently designated $25 million towards broadband expansion and digital inclusion. This is a significant step to help our community tackle the digital divide. Can you share with us some of the thinking of the Commissioner's Court as to why designating this funding was important?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, Marina, for your leadership at Digital Connects and all of the partners. I mean, I know we heard from Luisa at Toyota earlier, and there's a number of corporate community partners that we can't get this work done without. And so I'll tell you a little bit about where the county stands and how we got to this decision point. As many of you know, I guess at the tail end of COVID, I guess we're still in COVID technically, but the tail end, the federal government passed through really hundreds of millions of dollars to different communities to help with recovery under basically called American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA dollars. And the county set aside, we knew going into bouncing back from COVID, post-COVID, that we would need to invest significantly in certain buckets of areas of priorities in our community. We knew public health obviously would have to be a significant investment because of some of the underlying conditions in our community and disparities. We also knew that the digital divide was present before COVID. And I think in many ways, we all know COVID-19 really, I think, exposed how significant that digital divide was in our community. And so as a court, we decided we're going to take about $25 million, figure out the best way to invest in infrastructure, partner with the ISPs, as you mentioned, and really develop a plan to look at census tracts that were most impacted, not just by COVID, but historically what some of those disparities have been, whether they're economic, social disparities. And so we went through a months-long process of trying to figure out how to prioritize those dollars. Ultimately, as you mentioned, this summer, we decided to make that $25 million investment, which, I think you pointed out something that I think we should underscore. There is dollars that are going to be available through the state. There are dollars available through the larger infrastructure bill out of Washington. But I think what this investment symbolizes from a local level is our commitment to making sure that we address these disparities as quickly as possible. We can't wait on the state or the feds, but also too, it shows that we have skin in the game. And so leveraging those dollars, as you mentioned, whether it be with our corporate or community partners, or in this case with our state partners, shows that we want to make the strides and the investments as quickly as possible in addressing some of these longstanding issues. So, we talk often in I guess technical terms, right? These you hear often in the healthcare world about social determinants of health. I think that this is an investment where we are trying to reverse some of those longstanding disparities. And increasingly, as we went through COVID-19, we also saw how much we rely, if it wasn't evident before, how much we rely on technology for our day-to-day work, right? In COVID-19, it was often the disparity of being able to work from home for some people, making sure that our kids don't lose out on lesson plans in terms of online learning, homework help, things like that. But also we saw advances in telemedicine and teledoc appointments that sometimes our seniors, can't get to a certain appointment, but they can now interface through technology. And so all of these things I think are important for us to make sure that we identify, where are those areas that have historically been disadvantaged or lacking access, and making sure we make the right investment with the right partner to reverse that. So that was a little bit of, inside baseball of the thinking of Commissioners Court over the past few months. And we're hopeful now that these investments will make a difference.
Yes, well, I want to thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez, for your leadership with this investment, but also with your fellow commissioners, because it's so significant. It's such a huge first step forward. I did also just want to take a quick second to clarify. I think many of you all know, and again, I just want to be extra clear, none of the $25 million, none of that funding will ever come to or through SA Digital Connects. That is just designated funding at the county. And we're working with the county and meeting with them to ensure that funding goes to the census tracts that are currently not connected. But, that is sitting in the county's account and will go through the county's procurement process. So just wanted to add that in there. So moving on to the second question, Bob Rivard of the San Antonio Report recently did a progress report on how we're doing closing the digital divide. And he recently said that the digital divide became a new form of segregation in a city already battling the legacy of racial, ethnic, and economic segregation. Commissioner Rodriguez, do you agree or disagree, and why or why not?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, Bob has certainly struck a chord, and I agree. I mean, I think when you look at historically some of the systemic issues we faced in our community, whether it was redlining, regarding housing, access to opportunity, those same barriers exist for the digital divide. And I think, we're going to have to be extra diligent working with our partners, so the internet service providers, our ISPs, about areas that have been overlooked, and whether it's about access based on ability to pay, or just access in terms of infrastructure and having the type of tools in place to make those investments. I think when you look at the people in our community that have been impacted the most, again, I know we're taking a snapshot of the last few years during COVID-19, but I think it's an accurate depiction because those communities that have been impacted the most, economically segregated communities, communities of color, even age, right? You think about our seniors out there who, are now at a point where, as I mentioned earlier, might be able to access a doctor through their phone or through a computer. They've not grown up in that environment, and I think that we've got to keep that in mind as we go through and make these very deliberate decisions on how we're going to invest. Frankly, we can't have a community that is made up of the haves and the have-nots with respect to the digital divide. And so I think from our perspective, and I don't want to speak for the city, but from the county, and I think we align in a lot of ways, we've got to make sure that those disparities are addressed. We've got to make sure that there's equality and equity when it comes to making these investments. And is it going to happen overnight? Probably not, but I think those decisions we make today are certainly going to be meaningful for how this community, how this city and this county look down the road in 5 or 10 years. And so, whether, again, it's access to computer technology, Wi-Fi connectivity, again, I think everybody agrees that the infrastructure, just like we put in sewer systems and your CPS energy lines, connectivity through both Wi-Fi and broadband is, I think, becoming a way of life. And we need to make sure that just like in certain parts of our community, infrastructure has been ignored and it's all gone to certain parts of town. We've got to reverse that. And that starts with these decisions we're making today.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Last question. What happens next that the $25 million allocation that the county has designated to broadband, or what happens next to the $25 million allocation that the county has designated to broadband expansion and digital inclusion?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you clarified, Marina, that the money is not going to Digital Connects. We are going to use Digital Connects as a partner in identifying the greatest need. And so that the money set aside hasn't been appropriated, but it's set aside for Digital Connects and those areas. There was an RFP that's been out. I think both the city and county jointly are doing an RFP, and I believe that is coming back due later this week. I think this Thursday. So this is a timely conversation. So what the RFP is going to be is you're going to have proposals from different ISPs on number one, better understanding the lay of the land, right? We have an idea, at least I do, what areas may be impacted the most in terms of these disparities. So the responses to the RFPs are going to come back. We're going to evaluate those, figure out where we can partner to get digital broadband across our community. Of course, 25 million is a drop in the bucket when it comes to the needs in Bexar County and all across Texas. But we know in partnering with the city obviously is going to focus on the city limits within the city of San Antonio. I think complementary, the money from the county is going to look at areas in the unincorporated areas, the suburban cities, areas that have, now are experiencing significant growth. Some that are still rural in some aspect, right? When you look at parts of the south and east side. And so we're hopeful that the responses to the RFP will help us piece together the path forward for making these investments. And again, we'll have more information on scope, timeline, and everything with respect to the $25 million investment in the coming weeks, if not days, as we evaluate these RFPs. So we're hopeful that this gets moving quickly. Again, it all starts with this week with the responses coming back in, and then identifying those areas that need the investment the most.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, not only for being with us here today and answering these questions, but also for your leadership and really making sure that the county is stepping up and investing in our community in terms of broadband expansion and digital inclusion. We all can't thank you enough. And I'm sure if we could all give you a virtual hug right now, we would.
Yeah, well, I would take it. Thank you, Marina, for all your leadership and your work, the rest of the team. Again, this is not something we can do alone, and it's going to take a huge community effort and a huge group hug. So thank you for all of your work, and look forward to the continued conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And so for our next guest, we have Rebecca Lockhart with the FCC. She's a consumer education specialist, and she's going to spend some time today discussing the Affordable Connectivity Program, because, it's one thing to give infrastructure, but we know that so many residents in San Antonio and Bexar County face the barrier of accessing the internet because of the affordability challenges. So the ACP program, you all know, has been so welcome. And so we're excited to hear from Rebecca on some ACP updates. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for having me here. I love working with you all, and thanks for all the work that all of you are doing within your communities at the local level. Like Louisa and the commissioner said, this is not something anyone can do alone. So we really depend on you all to help spread the word and do outreach. So thank you for that. We have a few updates that I would like to share. One is there is going to be a grant program from the FCC. Right now, we're working on what's called the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So once that is released, that'll have all the information on how organizations will be able to apply for federal grants. It'll have the application information and how you're able to apply and list who's eligible to receive money. I know with working with our local partners, and consumers, talking to consumers themselves, one of the issues they're running across is that they can receive the benefit, but their provider might not be offering that device discount. So a lot of local governments like you all are showing them the resources where they can go, where they can find maybe some refurbished devices, or allocating money at the local level to give help as well as digital training. I mean, getting internet is just one step, right? I mean, we encourage people to get online, but that's not all there is. People need digital equity as well as digital training, digital literacy training. So we try to work a lot with partners at local levels, and we really appreciate what you all are doing. Your toolkit is amazing. I told Marina earlier and Michelle that we have been sharing your toolkit with our national partners because we work with other state and local level officials and digital equity organizations, whatever they're called at the state level. They all have digital inclusion, digital equity, but we're all doing the same kind of thing. So I've shared your toolkit because people are trying to create similar information for their communities, and it's been really helpful. Another thing I will share here in the chat is our FCC outreach toolkit. That has a lot of information that you can use to share within your community. We've added some, when school started, we added some back to school materials, but they can really be used at any time. They're just materials that are kind of geared towards students and parents that have information about how to enroll. There's some bookmarks, there's some flyers that are easy to print out for teachers in schools. Of course, if you're not able to print them yourself, we can do that and ship them out to you. We have a number of free material on that site, including logos, printouts, anything that you may use free of cost, of course. We're here as a resource as well. I'll add my email and our outreach partner email here in a second. But we really encourage everyone to reach out to us and join forces with us because it's not something we can do by ourselves. We really rely on partners at the local level. So just thanks again for all that you're doing with this ACP research. If you send an email to our outreach email, I'll just type that in now as I'm talking. We'll share information about the grant program as it gets more established. We also have broadband data collection efforts going on that I know SA Digital Connects is very involved with as well, getting updates on that so you all can identify those target areas and get a better idea of the broadband deployment in your area. So the FCC has always been, our chairwoman, Jessica Rosenworcel, has always been one of her biggest passions is closing the digital divide, and what she had referred to in the past as the homework gap. And that is really just, the importance of getting everyone online, especially students. So there aren't students that are just relying on going to a public place just to do their homework. So there's a lot of work being done at the FCC in this area, and we appreciate partners like you all who help us get the word out and really do the local level efforts to get people connected and get the money in the right places. So thanks again for having me. Happy Digital Inclusion Week, and I will add some more links here in the chat and answer any questions that anyone may have.
Well, and I did also just want to take this time to thank you, Rebecca, and the FCC. I know when we had partnered with Family Services of San Antonio and the City of San Antonio's innovation team, and Michelle and I, when we were really building the guts of the ACP toolkit, I felt like we were having to phone a friend with the FCC often, and because there's just so many nuances that we wanted to clarify, such as, maybe the family is eligible for ACP and the student is on free lunch so they can enroll, but, maybe they don't, maybe grandma is not a legal resident. And so would that get in trouble? So these were just complex, nuanced questions. And we were so glad to have a partnership with the FCC so that we could just talk through these things, right? And really figure out the best messaging that we could share with families to have them sign up. So thank you for being there for us and helping us as we're trying to get more families enrolled. Awesome. So, and thanks for dropping that information in the chat. And so we also have Angelica Cluna of DIASA here. And as we've said several times, it's Digital Inclusion Week, and there are events every single day. And we have an upcoming conference that Angelica is going to give us all the information on. So over to you, Angelica.
Thank you, Marina. I'm really glad to be here and to echo a little bit on everything that we've been talking about, how it takes a village, right, to solve this problem, and everybody has to work together. So similar, I was excited to see your resource map being laid out in a visual presentation. Similar to that, the Digital Inclusion Alliance of San Antonio has developed a community calendar, so it's open to the public. And I'll drop the link in the chat there for everybody to view it. But it's for events. So all of these events that I'm going to talk about on the sorry about that. I'm going to change that link real quick. All of the events I'm going to talk about are listed there along with ways that you can register for them, but I'll put the registration in the chat too. So this Digital Inclusion Week, the focus is on turning our moment into a movement. So as we talked about, there's that moment right now after COVID-19, or almost at the end of COVID-19, as Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned, that there's a realization there needs to be an investment in digital inclusion. So the National Digital Inclusion Alliance has taken that to make it the theme. This is our moment to make a real movement happen. We've been working on this for years, and now there's some collaboration across multi jurisdictions to really feed and resource this issue. So the Digital Inclusion webinar series that DIASA is hosting is very exciting. We are covering 5 days of talking about what's happening here in San Antonio and Bexar County. And so the Eventbrite registration has been linked in there, but I'd like to give you a quick kind of synopsis. Yesterday, we had an excellent session on serving San Antonio's target populations. So we had Kelly Rhodes with Restore Education and Daryl Greer with Oats speaking about the demographics, the people that they will help through their programs. So Oats helping older adults and Restore Education helping the at-risk youth in our community. We actually had what we call a lived expert, a gentleman who'd been affected by the digital divide and could really provide his insights into the conversation yesterday. He had been an Oats participant and taken their training, and I tell you, he stole the show. He told us so many things that were so impactful and really helped reaffirm all the things that we should be doing. So that session was led by Gavin Nichols at the San Antonio Area Foundation. Today's session is connecting the community. We'll have a real discussion about broadband, alternative financing for fiber infrastructure, and then how we can find solutions through public-private partnership. So we're going to have Deanne Cuellar with ILSR, Jordana Barton with Connect Humanity, and Renee Gonzalez with Lit Communities. And that session will be moderated by Michelle Vega of IDRA. On Wednesday, we've got expanding affordability and access. That's about really making sure we're offering up whatever we have available. So we've got Molly Fawn with Vocal, a community-based ISP approach. Edward Bartholomew again talking about the ACP, right? So Edward Bartholomew with the FCC, and Phyllis Viagran talking about City Council District 3 and what they're doing for digital inclusion. And that session will be moderated by Andrea Figueroa of Empower House. And then on Thursday, we switch it up a little bit. So we aren't going to have any lived experts on Thursday and Friday, but we're going to talk a lot about digital equity in San Antonio and the digital equity ecosystem. So on Thursday, digital equity is going to address things like workforce development, housing challenges, and healthcare management, right? Those are all things that impact all of us, that if we're not digitally connected, we're going to be impacted. And then finally, the championing of the SA digital inclusion ecosystem. So we're going to have Laura Cole with the county. We're going to have Thomas Davis with the city's Office of Innovation, and lovely Marina with SA Digital Connects, along with Mooney from Mooney Santiago Jester from NDIA, talking about how this ecosystem is working together, who's doing what, how we're coordinating things, and all those wonderful opportunities for people to connect with us. So yes, we are recording these sessions. We're going to do a little bit of editing to them, make sure they've got a nice smooth look to them, and then we'll be publishing them later this month on our website. So thank you for that question. So yeah, doing great, exciting things with these webinars. They are all week, 12 to 1. So you can sit there and eat your lunch and enjoy the conversation. They are conversation based. They're not necessarily presentations. There's a lot of, asking questions of the people who are doing the work and the people who are impacted. And it's really allowing you to dig deep into the challenges and come up with ways that you might want to participate. In addition to that, on Friday, after all this hard work, we're having a mixer. So we're very excited about our mixer. We're going to go down to the Friendly Spot and all get together and socialize a bit. I'm going to put a link in the chat for our mixer Eventbrite. It's on your own, but it helps to get it on your calendar. If you put it into the Eventbrite, you can automatically save the time and location to your calendar. So you can register for that, or you can just show up. If you're like, hey, I'm down here, I can just show up. Two more quick updates of what we're doing over at the ASA. One of the things we're doing, at least, there's quite so many things, but the National Digital Inclusion Alliance is bringing Net Inclusion to San Antonio next spring. So Net Inclusion will be here February 28th through March 2nd. It is the largest conference for digital inclusion in the nation, and they are expecting the one we have in San Antonio this year to bring about 600 people who are working on digital inclusion to our community. We have two opportunities for, we have several sponsorship opportunities, but we also have the opportunity for people who are working in the digital inclusion space to have a site visit. So to bring these experts, these other people from other communities, and to share what you're doing so that they can expand that across there, or even provide insights as to, what they've done. So I'd like to drop the site survey link in the chat. That's going to be for anybody who wants to share the digital inclusion they're working on with this large group and be able to really impact what Net Inclusion can provide and showcase what San Antonio is doing for digital inclusion. And then I can also drop the registration. It is open for Net Inclusion. The registration, the event will be down at the convention center, and we'll be highlighting San Antonio's culture as well as all of the great things we are doing for digital inclusion here in this community. So I know I've provided all of these links to Michelle, and I think she's going to do some kind of follow-up. So if you're having trouble following there in the chat, I'm happy to be a resource for you also.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Angelica. And I know that, you were quickly rattling off the events, but we also know that in the background, they take a lot of work and coordination to provide meaningful conversations and awareness about this issue. So thank you so much for all the work you are doing to helping get these events going. We really appreciate it. It's going to take all of us.
Sorry, I went so fast. I just felt I had too much to cover. I didn't want to miss anything.
And I'm sorry. I didn't mean like you were speaking fast. I was just saying like there was a lot to cover. So that was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we wanted, before we go into any last minute questions and answers, we just wanted to talk about some upcoming activation. So you'll see Google form on there. As Angelica was mentioning, we're going to send a follow-up email with a lot of the links that were dropped in the chat, as well as a Google form. And this Google form is just going to make sure we have your updated contact information, but also it's going to ask if there's any other community orgs we should be partnering with or working on, or other community orgs who should be hearing these updates. Let us know that too. You know, we want to make sure that we're being inclusive and making sure, you know, like I've said a million times, it's going to take all of us. And so we want to make sure that people are getting updated with the information that's relevant to them. So on some upcoming activation, like Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned, the city county RFP closes this Thursday, which we're very excited about. And as a reminder, that RFP is really asking three things, and I'm going to simplify it. The first one is, you know, where ISPs currently have fiber assets. The second one is a little bit about expansion plans and where they're going to go. And the third one is how internet service providers would want to partner with the city and the county to address areas that are currently disconnected. So we're excited to see that, to get that information, to evaluate that information, and go on to next steps and start connecting communities. That's our big ammo. We are working with the FCC on their mapping data. And we also recently heard from the state broadband office, and we're able to talk to them because the state of Texas is bringing in Lightbox to do statewide data. Now, the FCC's Fabric data and state of Texas's Lightbox data, they're going to tell us address by address what households are disconnected and what are not. So all of that to say is there's going to be a whole lot of information coming, and we're going to be able to really identify at the household and even for some apartments at the unit level, which units and households are disconnected and not. So that is going to be so important, because funding decisions are going to be made that way. Where we direct those funds are going to be made using this mapping information. So we've been really excited to hear that. With that mapping process, there's also going to be a mapping input process. There's also going to be a challenge process, right? Because some of the maps might show, you know, a census tract on the south side being connected, and maybe they're not, or maybe they have slow or no bandwidth. So there's going to be a speed test that's being done. We're working closely with the FCC on that. SA Digital Connects is gearing up for some activation around that, but right now we're working with and following closely for the FCC rules on what that speed test can look like before we start activating around that. I mentioned earlier state funding opportunities. So, you know, everybody's writing rules and stuff right now, and some of those state funding opportunities are going to open up towards the end of this year and early into next year. So we'll be tracking and pushing out that information as soon as it's available. I discussed the legislative session, digital inclusion survey coming up in early 2023. I think Brian Dillard, the Chief Innovation Officer for the city of San Antonio, dropped that in the chat. The city, I think in partnership with UTSA, is launching another survey in 2023. So recall, they did this back in 2019, and that is where we got that crucial information that we have shared broadly, that 20% of households face barriers accessing the internet. And so we're very excited to have that survey done again. We're going to be working closely with the city on that survey, and really working with all of us and the community orgs to make sure that people are participating in that survey, so that we can have a very accurate picture of the digital divide here in San Antonio and Bexar County, and see if the needles move the right way or the wrong way, right? But we need those survey and we need those responses in order to validate the work that's been done. So with that, you know, I'm going to open it up for question and answer. You all have connects at sadigitalconnects.com email. You all have my email. You have our website, you know, we're, as Louisa started out with, you know, SA Digital Connects is here to support you all, whether you all need to get connected to the FCC, whether you all need to know about events, whether you all are, you know, we get emails constantly of, hey, I'm at the library because I don't have Wi-Fi or I don't have internet at my house. We're here to funnel those requests and be supportive in any way we can. So thanks so much for your time today. And let me see if there's questions. I think we're good, right, Michelle? Okay, I think there was one question, sorry. Will there be a joint use of funds for broadband and EV charging infrastructure? That is a great question, Joshua. Thank you for asking. I don't know the answer and I'm not going to pretend to know the answer. You know, I know that there's a lot of work being done in the EV charging space, but I don't have the details on that. So, you know, we could talk offline about that, but I just don't have the answer right now. How are some school districts able to allow internet access for the public and others do not? That's a great question, Melanie. We do talk to some of the school districts, their superintendents, and some of them are able to use their facilities to open it up for public access. Let me research that. I mean, I can figure out why some of them are able to do it and some are not. I'm imagining it's because of school rules and you know, how the hours that they can keep those public areas open and probably staff. But I can follow up with you directly, Melody, on that, because I don't have that answer right now. Awesome.
I can add just a speculation on that too,
Sure.
Melody and Marina. I know there's some, it probably has to do with funding as well. I know, you know, there's the Universal Service Fund offers funding to some eligible schools that apply and are eligible. So that might be just part of the answer, you know, whether or not how they're paying for that internet and how they're able to provide it to the community. Same goes for some healthcare institutions. I know some hospital and health facilities and communities offer the same thing. So it's really just unique to the area. So Marina, you'd be able to figure that out probably better of what's going on in your city and state.
Yeah, no, we can definitely ask. And Melody, I'll follow up an email so that way, you know, if there's a school district in particular you're curious about, we can figure that out. Awesome. So just got to know, I don't think we have any more questions. Again, wanted to thank you all so much for your time. If there's any other partners who weren't able to join this morning, we know it's a busy week for a lot of people. The recording will be on our website probably at some point next week. So thanks again for y'all's time today and y'all's engagement. And I think we're done. We're done.